Hello and welcome aboard WhalePod to another Genshin Impact video. I'm your Captain Whale, and today is the long-awaited video. No, we are not doing the Archon quest or the event quest just yet, but I am going to be giving my full review of Wanderer and Itto, now that I've concluded all my wishing and even the practical test of them in the Spiral Abyss. This is also the spot where I was standing when I did my off-camera wishing session for Arataki Itto. It was a very improvised thing, so I didn't even bother going to my summon spot and doing my usual ritual. I just stood right here as Wanderer looking out over the port and wished. Now, let's get straight into things. My Wanderer's stats have changed a little bit since I last showed him off, as I do have a slightly better... Yes, I do have a slightly better 5-star crit circlet. It no longer has flat defense, flat HP, and defense percent, as well as elemental mastery. It now has attack percent, flat attack, HP percent, and a little bit less elemental mastery, but more attack percent. So we are slowly but surely improving our Wanderer's circlet. Whenever I do farm artifacts, I'm still farming in that domain, trying to get better pieces from these new sets. Now, full stats on our Wanderer, we are still at 76.3, 111.2 on our crit rate, crit damage ratio. As I've said before, if I can choose between either skewing towards the crit rate side or the crit damage side, if I can't get that balanced 2-to-1 damage to rate ratio, I will err on the side of skewing towards crit rate, as crit rate gives you more consistency. Energy recharge is 128.5, which, with Farazan also in the party, is more than enough energy recharge for our edgy Anemo Boi here. Maybe if I had C2, I'd want a little bit more to get burst back closer to every rotation, as opposed to, like, every rotation and a half, which is more than enough for my uses. He does indeed have his signature weapon. Other weapons that I do think could work well for him. Not you. Okay, yeah, Lost Bird of the Sacred Wind is definitely a good choice for him, because you trade a little bit of base attack for what would essentially be 66.2 crit value if it were crit damage, or crit value, because crit rate has twice the crit value of crit damage. So it's essentially the equivalent of something like Kagura's Verity, stats-wise, but skewed to the crit rate side as opposed to crit damage, with a actually very useful passive for the Wanderer. Movement speed isn't all that important, but just the Wanderer is going to be sitting around on the field, spamming his normal attacks, getting those elemental damage bonuses racking up. Might not be able to get to the full 4 stacks, but you'll definitely be getting more use out of it than you will with other characters that use a catalyst. Another alternative option, if you got unlucky and got it on one of its previous banners when you were going for the other weapon, is, since the Wanderer really does want to be paired with a shielder, whether that's someone like Toma, Diona, or Layla, who he can swirl the elements from their shields, or someone like Zhongli, who just gives him extra all-elemental resistance shred, well, he will be able to take full benefit of the shield strength buff from Memory of Dust, which applies only to the shield strength while he is active. And he will be able to get the doubled value of the attack buffs from the 5 stacks, seeing as you pretty much always want to have Wanderer shielded. Now into 4-star options. As always, the Widsith is a good 4-star option for the Wanderer. I do also like Solar Pearl and Blackcliff Agate, because they are crit-statted weapons. Even if Solar Pearl, he won't always be able to keep it up 100% of the time, as he's not really using his elemental skill every 6 seconds. Well, neither is Hazo, but Hazo at least I feel uses it more often. As for other weapons, as he's a main DPS, I don't know exactly how many of these catalysts are meant for main DPS or not. Frostbearer is weird. It is more of a DPS catalyst because of the attack on it, but once again, just like with Memories of Dust, having attack percent on it, you're going to need to go extra all in on crit stats on your artifacts if you do either of those, and Frostbearer is just a little weird, but it is a free-to-play attack scaling option. You get this blueprint to craft it from the tree on Dragonspine. Let's see. Don't really think Wine and Song, even though it matches his aesthetic almost perfectly, is very good on him, or anyone for that matter. 3-star weapons, don't use a 3-star weapon on your DPS. Wanderer is a DPS unit. Artifact sets. I'm going to go out and say right here, right now, that it's actually, I feel, pretty interchangeable between whether you go for Viridescent Venerer or the new set on him. Viridescent Venerer is better for swirl damage, while this is better for his own personal damage with his normal attacks. And if you are going Viridescent Venerer, you might want to pay a little bit more attention to Elemental Mastery because of that. Other artifact sets, let's just get a random piece here and bring up the set filter. I would not recommend Echoes of an Offering, despite him being normal attack based, because once again, Echoes of an Offering is bugged. And if your ping is any higher than 20, it will not proc like it's supposed to. I don't think Severed Fate is that good below C2. At C2, there might be an argument for it, because C2 does just triple the damage of his burst if you're using it below half your total wind-favored points. Some people have argued for Shimenawa's Reminiscence, and I can see why, but his burst, particularly of the characters that people will commonly recommend Shimenawa's for, is one of the better as far as damage output goes. But I will not recommend Shimenawa's at any constellation, particularly not at C2 or above, because once again at C2 and above, his burst becomes an even bigger nuke. And now, I will also state that once again, I do not recommend using Shimenawa's for anything other than its 2-piece. Even on someone like Yoimiya, I much prefer Crimson on her. So all in all, Shimenawa's a F-tier set for me. Let's see, neither of these, a Catalyst can't deal physical, no HP scaling, and really no off-field damage to trigger the Tenacity 4-piece. Not Hydro, Catalyst can't infuse, not Cryo, Catalyst can't infuse. Although this is still slightly useful, as you don't need to actually be doing the freezing or applying the cryo, you just need to be attacking something that's frozen or cryoed. But still, just put them on a better set. Once again, Lava Walker is terrible, Crimson Witch is for Pyro, and Pyro reactions. Thundering Fury, maybe Zajef's gonna come out with a build saying why you should use Thundering Fury Wander 100% uptime. But I don't even think gimmicks like that would work, because his wind favored state doesn't even go on cooldown until you descend out of it. Or maybe it does go on cooldown immediately, and if you descend early, you're gonna have more to wait through, or I don't know. I don't think it goes on cooldown until you end it. Thunder Soother is in the same boat as Lava Walker. Ironically, if you are using something like the Memory of Dust, because you're always running in with Zhongli, Retracing Bolide could actually be useful here. It gives you almost the same normal and charge attack damage buff when you're shielded as Shimenawa's does, for sacrificing basically the ability to ever use your burst, while still being able to use your burst because you just need to be shielded, which with Zhongli, you have 100% shield uptime. Once again, no Geo on him. I've already talked about Viridescent Venerer. I do think it is his second best in slot. He's not a healer. Well, unless you use Prototype Amber, but don't use Prototype Amber on him. Can't do physical damage. This is a support set. He is a DPS. While it will give you, the 2-piece will give you a little bit more damage on the nuke. Once again, that's, maybe you could do something 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece 18% attack once you do have Constellation 2, but before that, don't go near Noblesse. He is a Catalyst, so if all else fails, Wanderer's Troop can get him a little extra charge attack damage, even though his bread and butter is normal attacks. So while it is an option, I do not recommend it. Gladiators is only useful for the 2-piece because he is not a sword, polearm, or claymore. And then we get into the sets that I would recommend on him, if 4-star versions of them existed. Berserker would be an amazing set on par with some of the better 5-star sets if it did have a 5-star variant, as would Instructor. To a lesser extent, I want to say Scholar, maybe. I don't remember exactly what that one does. Gambler would kind of be a funny set to run if it had 5-star variants. Oh, and the Exile would be completely broken if there were 5-star variants of it. It would be a support set to rival Noblesse for sure. I personally do not keep or use 4-star artifacts. These ones are only here because I haven't gotten around to leveling up artifacts since obtaining them. So that's my opinion on Wander artifacts. Constellations, I think the only one really worth getting is the C2. But once again, that can require a lot of money, so either you're a Wanderer stan who's really saving up a ton for their boy, or you're stupid rich, or just stupid. I find myself falling into the third category whenever I am wishing for constellations. But yeah, just 4% per point difference between your max amount of your wind-favored points and your present capacity. With the base 100 from not infusing with Hydro, you need to be below 50, and with the Hydro infusion, you need to be below 70. As it maxes at 200%, 25 points times 4 is 100, so 50 times 4 is 200. This will increase his burst by 3. This one's a little weird because the attack speed of his normal attacks, and I want to say charge attack as well, when in the wind-favored state, is increased by a further 10%. Additionally, the wind arrows fired by the passive talent, this will give you some wind-favored point free dashes that also fire attacks at nearby enemies. Will deal an additional 25% of his attack as damage. And of course, you have to have the corresponding passive talent unlocked to gain any benefit from this constellation. That's an alright constellation. This one gives you a extra random infusion and increases the maximum cap of infusions to 3. Level of his skill, which I'll talk about the skill a little later, but it's sort of like a Yoimiya situation. And then this one. When the Wanderer actively hits an opponent with the one of his attacks on the wind-favored state, the following effect will occur. Additional instance of damage at the hit position, 40% of the attack's original damage will be considered normal attack damage. So that must be what his normal attack is called in the wind-favored state. And when he falls below 40 wind-favored points, he will restore 4 points to him. Can be restored in this manner once every 1/5 of a second and can occur up to 5 times within one wind-favored duration. So when you fall below 40 points, you'll get 20 back over the course of 1 second. And, yeah. Not as impressive as a C6 should be. I don't really like it. Don't think I'll ever go for it unless I accidentally stumble across it, wishing for a new 4-star on his rerun or something. This one can be kind of cool, but C4s are just really expensive, and I don't think that one's worth the cost. This is probably the best bang for your buck, even if I would not recommend it, because it's still a lot of bucks. Now we move into talents. Wanderer, like I said, is like Yoimiya, and mine is still at 666 because he's at the unfortunate state of needing to compete with Nahida for his own boss drops. I'm currently so close to being able to triple crown Nahida, and I will make a video showing myself crowning her when I can. I need one more drop to be able to convert over to the puppet strings Nahida needs. But I would recommend leveling up. Even though statistics are being tabulated, I will say you want to level up your normal attack first, this second, and your burst, well, as you're able to. The burst is a big damage nuke, but these both factor into the damage he deals while he's in the wind-favored state. Because like Yoimiya, this does not replace your standard normal attacks or your standard charge attacks as well in Wanderer's case, with their own, like some such as Sino or Itto do. But in fact, just like Yoimiya applies a extra multiplier on top of your original. So, it could be theoretically said that just like with Yoimiya, having 10 on normal attack and 1 on skill gives you more damage than 8 on normal attack and 8 on skill. So the normal attack should be the clear first priority if you do want to increase Wander's damage, because the normal attack numbers here are going to be what this is multiplying. So if your base is higher, your multiplication of that base is going to be higher. And now this is just 5 hits for 206% at level 6. Probably... Okay, yeah, the scaling's pretty decent. We're gaining 14 percentage points from scaling per hit for a total of 80 percentage points per burst each level. So if you calculate it out now, already at level 6, it's already over 1000% for the total damage from the burst, and will be over 1100% at level 7. Now, this is where the whole infusion things I was mentioning earlier come in. This is his A1 passive, so he'll have it as soon as he gets ascended to 20 of 40. When you're activating his hovering state with his E, if it comes into contract with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, when it is unleashed, this instance will obtain buffs according to the contacted element. My current team I'm running with him uses Hydro and Cryo for extra airtime and giving me nearly perfect crit rate. And if you do want to have his burst even more on rotation than I currently have it, but have a similar energy recharge situation to my Wander, roughly in the 130% range, consider running him with Electro, so he'll get energy back when he hits with his normal and charge attacks every 20th of a second, which, unless you're doing some insane attack speed shenanigans like Itto's burst, I don't think Chongyun's E gives attack speed to Catalyst users. I think it's just for the ones that get infused by him. But like Itto's burst, Song of Broken Pines, his signature weapon, and his Constellation 1, if you're attacking lightning fast like that, then yeah, you could probably hit too fast to get energy back on every normal attack hit. But without any shenanigans like that, you'll likely get energy back on every hit. And as it says, you can have up to 2 different kinds of these buffs simultaneously. The Constellation 4 will boost this to 3, even though I do believe you can only obtain 2 naturally. And the third one will be randomly chosen between the 2 you didn't gain naturally. Or 3 if you don't manage to hit multiple elements. And this one, it gives you the whole thing I was talking about earlier, where you can occasionally get a free dash. When the Wanderer hits an opponent with the normal attack or charge attack in wind-favored state, he has a 16% chance to obtain the descent effect. The next time the Wanderer accelerates, aka dashes, in midair, while this instance of the wind-favored state, this effect will be removed. This acceleration instance will not consume any wind-favored points or flying stamina, and he will fire off 4 wind arrows that deal, essentially, when you add them all together, 140% of his attack combined as Anemo damage total, but 35% per arrow. So I want to say that that Constellation there was adding another 35% on, so it's effectively doubling the damage output from this. And for each normal or charge attack that does not produce this effect, the next attack of those types will have a 12% increased chance of producing it. The calculation of the effect production is done once every 10th of a second. So basically it's like the Echoes of an Offering set. And while Echoes of an Offering is still bugged because Hoyoverse never fixes their bugs, I do believe that this does not have that same bug. And of course, his passive talent makes it cheaper to ascend bows and catalysts. All in all, I do like Wanderer as a character, not as much as I thought I was going to, mainly because, going back to the hovering here, it costs way too many wind-favored points to gain altitude. I know they were scared of having him sequence break too many puzzles just by flying up and grabbing the objective, but it costs way too much. It's almost useless for verticality in exploration, relegating Kazuha and Venti to still being the kings of that. You can't fire off his hovering state mid-air like you can the press variant of Kazuha's E, which I do also find to be a bit of a detriment to him. He's still good, he's very fun to play in combat, he looks awesome, when he's just hovering around there, just raining down death and destruction on all the little slimes and bouncy things down there. But all in all, I was going to say he's a must-pull for his exploration, but he's really not a must-pull for his exploration. If you want a character who's insane for horizontal exploration, get Yelan. And if you want a character who's insane for vertical exploration, get either Venti or Kazuha. Get Wander if you want if you think the idea of flying around is novel. But he's not like the end-all be-all of sequence breaking everything in exploration. He's definitely the best at horizontal air movement. But even then, when you're dashing mid-air with it or sprinting mid-air, it still drains your points extremely quickly. All in all, Wander is a good 5-star. He's good in combat, not broken. And he's good for exploration, but he's not sequence breaking everything. There's still quite a lot he can sequence break, but I don't think he sequence breaks anything any more severely than characters like Kazuha and Venti already did. Yeah, so that's my opinion on Wander. Now we got the Oni of the Hour himself. My Itto's stats have actually changed since the Spiral Abyss. Not because he got new artifacts, but because his artifacts were not all level 20 in my most recent Whale Abyss video, but now they all are. Let's show off his stats a little bit. He's got a 78.6% crit rate and 184.1% crit damage. His crit damage could be a lot better considering he does have Redhorn Stone Thresher. His energy recharge is roughly the same as Wander's, about 5 percentage points more. And seeing as you always want a Geo DPS to at least have Geo Resonance, that is going to be fine. And if you're running him with a Favonius Warbow Goro, like I am frequent to do, that is extra fine. And if you're running him with Constellation 2 and a Favonius Warbow Goro, you are extra, extra, extra fine. Now, Redhorn Stone Thresher is a very strong weapon on Itto. It is his clear best in slot. Redhorn Stone Thresher is also almost directly made for Itto, as the only other characters that I would ever consider Stone Thresher on are Noelle and maybe Xinyan. But Xinyan still does want a lot of attack and a lot of defense, so the low base attack will hinder Xinyan a bit more than it would Itto or Noelle. Now, as far as other weapons you could use on Itto, if you have it and don't know where to put it, the Unforged is good with Itto, as a Geo team is going to be crystallizing a lot, and a lot of the Itto Geo teams do include Zhongli. So Itto will always be able to take advantage of the shield strength. However, the fact that it is a purely attack-based weapon and Itto mainly wants defense scaling does hinder it a little bit. Although attack is not wasted, he gets a ton of it already from the infusion on his burst. Physical Itto is not a good idea, so even though it has an insane base attack, don't use Song of Broken Pines. 4-star weapons, I do think the only 4-star options for Itto are the White Blind and the crit options. White Blind is, I believe, the only other defense scaling claymore in the game, and it has a similar effect to the Unforged, but I feel like it is just straight up better than the Unforged, because the stacks also increase defenses, and while my Unforged is Refinement rank 5, that is going to be a very rare occurrence for anyone who is not a Mega Whale. And the White Blind is craftable, so just using the Claymore billets you find, you can, not necessarily reliably, but eventually get it up to Refinement rank 5, and no monetary investment whatsoever. As far as the crit weapons go on Claymores, we have the Serpent Spine, the crit rate from the Battle Pass. Once again, it's entirely just for the crit, and of course the passive is actually pretty good, considering Itto is often run with a shield, either just from picking up a lot of crystallized shards or from Zhongli, meaning that the more damage you take from the Serpent Spine will be probably the least noticeable on someone like Itto. Maybe a little bit less noticeable on Noelle, where she's a Claymore and has a shield built right into her kit. I would say Xinyan as well, but Xinyan has bugs with how her shielding works, so if your shield bugs out on you, you're not going to have as much damage absorption from it as you think. The other crit weapon option is Blackcliff Slasher, which, while technically free-to-play, is a bit more on the premium side of free-to-play, as it does require spending your Star Glitter to get. However, it is a crit damage scaling weapon, just like the Red Horn Stone Thresher. So, if you don't have Red Horn yet, if you're saving to get it on Itto's next rerun, the Blackcliff Slasher is actually a pretty decent stand-in for that, as you won't have to change around your artifact setup at all, as its substat is the same as the Red Horns. I don't think there are any 3-star claymores I'd recommend for Itto. I know there are no 3-star claymores really good enough to keep. The only thing I will say is Itto is an Oni. Onis love their clubs. Debate Club is the only club in the game, so if you want to go for flavor points there, give him a Debate Club. As far as artifacts go, Husk of Opulent Dreams is going to be Itto's far and away best in slot. It gives him a massive amount of extra defense with 30%. And it's 4-piece set. When Itto is on the field, when he's doing his burst, all his attacks are infused with Geo. He's going to be triggering Geo damage, more than enough to get his curiosity stacks up to 4 and keep them at 4. As for constellations, Itto has 2 really insanely good ones. Gather Round is a brawl, basically, I would say cuts in half the energy recharge requirements that Itto needs to have. As after using his burst, he will, for each party member whose element is Geo, will decrease that skill's cooldown by 1.5 seconds and restore 6 energy to Itto. So, in a triple... CD can be reduced by up to 4.5 seconds in this manner, and 18 energy can be restored in this manner at a maximum. So what that means is triple Geo is the most benefit you can get out of this. As I stated in the Spiral Abyss episode, there is no reason to ever go more than triple Geo. Both Itto and Goro, all their Geo effects cap at 3 Geo party members. So you can have a 4th flex slot as one of the 4 reactive elements in order to get some crystallizes going for a little bit extra damage, and for, well, particularly for Goro, his burst duration, I'm not sure if this is a constellation or just an ascension passive or part of the base kit, gets extended whenever you pick up crystallized shards up to a maximum at, I want to say, 4 or 5 shards picked up. C3 boosts the level of Ushi. Ushi can actually be a pretty good nuke when higher leveled and with good stats on Itto. This is probably his most forgettable constellation. It just gives all nearby party members, I believe including himself, extra defense and extra attack for 10 seconds after his Raging Oni King state, his infusion from his burst ends. I do believe it's actually possible with the cooldown reduction from Gather Round It's a Brawl to be able to still have this defense and attack buff when you fire off your next infusion. However, you will lose it midway through the next infusion. Now we have 10 years of Hanamizaka Fame, which is just +3 levels to his burst, which will increase how much of your defense gets added to your attack when you infuse. And this is the most insane constellation in the game. It has a very low floor of just adding 70 crit damage to his charged attacks, while to his super strength charge attacks, specifically those. Wait, no, it just says charge attacks. Even if you don't have super strength, the little spinny slash he does will have extra crit damage. Additionally, when he uses super strength stacks, though, he has a 50% chance to not actually use the stack and keep it. So it has a very low floor of just losing the 50-50 on every hit and not getting any extra hits out of it. Or you can just chain like 20, 30, 40, 50, theoretically infinite hits of this as long as you keep getting lucky. I think in our Spiral Abyss run I was able to get one that was in the high teens to low 20s. And definitely the extra damage just by not spending these stacks and getting to do the big Unga Bunga hits more frequently is what allowed me to eke through some of Floor 12's more yikes chambers. Floor 12 is probably one of the toughest it's ever been. Anytime Golden Wolf Lord is in the Abyss, it is a little tougher because Golden Wolf Lord demands at least 1 Geo character in order to be able to break through the shield at all. Or at least break through the shield in any reasonable amount of time. I do believe my first time ever facing the Golden Wolf Lord in the Abyss back in 2.5 I was able to break through its shield in about 3 minutes without any Geo characters at all. But obviously, that's nowhere near sustainable for getting 3 stars. Oh yeah, I forgot to go over his other artifact sets he's good with, because it's actually, I'd say, a pretty short list. The only other defense scaling set in the game, unfortunately, has no 5-star variants. Defender's Will give 30% Geo damage as a 2-piece. But other than that, there is no other set that will give defense on a 2-piece. Gladiator's Finale doesn't buff his charge attacks, and your damage is coming from charge attacks, and attack is less meaningful when you're getting tons of it added on from your bursts and fusion. He's not a support, no Noblesse, not a Catalyst, no Wanderers, and Geo hates Elemental Mastery. Geo hates Elemental Mastery. Berserker would be decent if it had a 5-star variant. You can do Physical Itto, but it's really bad, so I'd say no Bloodstained or Pale Flame. Itto's not a healer, and there's no prototype Amber equivalent for Claymores, so don't even think about Maiden Beloved or Clam. Not Anemo. He is Geo, but he doesn't really get any benefit from the 4 set. Let's go. We're gonna come back to Retracing Bolide in a little bit. No, no, no. Pretty much no to all of these. No to Shimenawa's. Emblem of Severed Fate is only partially useful, as he still does normal attack damage when he's in his burst state, so it's just energy recharge, and that's just meh. Of course, best in slot is Husk. Not a healer. No and no to these. No, 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 no. The only other set I'd really say is viable aside from his signature set, which is part of why Itto is falling into the Geo trap, is Retracing Bolide, because similarly to Wanderer, you're oftentimes playing Itto with either shields or coincidentally picking up crystallized shards, so you'll be able to take advantage of that meaty 40% damage boost to normal and, most importantly, charge attacks from the 4-piece set bonus of Retracing Bolide. So Retracing is really the only other set I'd recommend playing around with for Itto other than Husk of Opulent Dreams, but at the same time, Husk, in my opinion, is just too good to give up. So with that, that concludes the artifacts. My Itto is fully leveled up on his normal attack. The level up priority should be normal attack, burst, and then Ushi, because once again, the normal attack is the baseline, and the infusion doesn't even add a multiplier to the normal attack, it just adds flat out attack. So if we look here at level 10, we have a massive scaling numbers on his charge attacks. And yeah, the normal attacks are okay too, but it's that charge attack scaling you really want to get going. It's basically the same as his 3-hit, and it comes out a whole lot faster than his combo thanks to his Ascension 1 passive. But yeah, I would definitely recommend his normal attack first. It's definitely crown worthy. Ushi, as you can see by that skill damage there, is just a big bovine-shaped nuke. Not nearly as big of a scaling as something like Wanderer's Burst like we just saw, which has nearly double that at level 6, whereas this is level 11. But this is a skill you can pop off with no energy recharge needed every 10 seconds, as opposed to I believe Wanderer has a 60 cost burst. And Itto has the rare 70 cost elemental burst, so if you have the full 3 Geo party members with his Constellation 2, it'll be a 52 cost, and have a it'll have a 13.5 second cooldown with that as well, but 18 is not bad considering I do believe it starts cooling down immediately as soon as you pop it. So it effectively only has 7 seconds of downtime, or if you do have the Constellation 2, because you're either lucky enough, rich enough, dumb enough, or have just gotten like 1 Itto per time he's been on the banner. I would say if someone's just getting 1 copy of a character each time they come back around, They could theoretically, for a character like Itto, who's been around 3 times, already have their Constellation 2. So I'm going to say Constellation 2 is probably a bit more attainable just because of how long Itto's been in the game than for someone like Wander. So I'll probably bring it up a bit more than I would for Wander. At level 11, it is adding 109.4% of my defense to my attack. So that's... If we compare my Itto's stats, his attack was like 1200 and something, and his defense was like 2300 and something. So that will more than triple my attack. His first Ascension passive just speeds up his charge attacks. Each slash increases the attack speed of the next by 10%. Max attack speed increases 30%. And these slashes already come out faster than his normal attacks, and increases his resistance to interruption, so he'll be harder to knock out of the chain there with each slash you get in. I do not know if this caps after 3 hits like the attack speed does. And his Ascension 4 passive is his charge attack damage is increased by 35% of his defense, which once again, based on my Itto's stats, basically equates to roughly 70% of his attack. And his passive talent's pretty cool. It's the only passive talent in the game that modifies any sort of wood gathering. However, you specifically have to attack the tree to obtain the wood. You can't simply use the new wood gadget and have a 25% chance of getting extra wood on each block extracted. But still, if you do like running around spending your time hitting trees, Itto's the character for you. All in all, Itto is an amazing character. Max Mittelman kills it with his English voice acting, although I did honestly expect prior to it being revealed who was going to voice Itto, and before it was revealed that the splash art for him is way more bulky and muscular than he actually ended up being in game. I was going to say that he should have been voiced by, I don't know who their name is, but the guy who voices Balthus in the Fire Emblem Three Houses DLC. I was thinking of having this big muscle man be more of the deep-voiced, kind of cocky and boisterous individual, as opposed to the high-pitched man-child that Max Mittelman does bring to the table here. It does fit Itto's personality to a T, though, so I'm not going to complain too much. Max, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. And as you can see, I'm such a fan of Itto's characterization more than I am the Wanderer's, that I chose to talk about the voice actor, wherewith, Patrick, you're doing just keep doing your job. Nothing real special to say about you. But yeah, Itto is easily one of the best characters for the Geo element, if not the best character for the Geo element. Up there with Zhongli, who is the best Geo support, Itto is by far and away the best Geo DPS. Mono Geo, or close to Mono Geo, 3 Geo plus a Crystallize element, is probably one of my favorite strategies to play, even if it does get a little monotonous from time to time, and I want to shake things up with my absolute favorite strategy to play, which is the Nilou Bloom comp. But Itto is still a very solid character. His constellations are tried and true, so if you have a choice between snagging one for Itto and snagging one for someone new like Wanderer, definitely choose Itto. His Constellation 6 is probably my favorite in the game, and definitely one of the more hilarious Constellation 6s in the game. Just the chance of just winning enough 50-50s to keep endlessly going. You don't even have to win them all in a row. As long as you have one stack that keeps getting brought back, you just keep slashing and slashing and slashing. So that's my review of C6 Itto and C0 Wanderer. Wanderer, he's good, and not as good for exploration as I thought he was going to be. Itto, tried and true, one of the most fun characters in the game, even if his team comps are a bit more restrictive. Although, before you do get C2 on Itto, it's less restrictive, as you have no incentive in the base kit or in the C1 kit to go for more than 2 Geo. The incentive for 2 Geo is, of course, Geo Resonance. It's pretty much essential for Geo DPS. But at the same time, I showed off a pretty kick-A double Geo Pyro Electro team in Floor 12, the second half of this current Spiral Abyss, where we brought in Itto, Zhongli, Yaimiko, and Bennett, as Yaimiko's turrets are able to accurately track and land hits on the Pupper Snake while it's in the air. Now, with that said and done, I hope you have enjoyed this video, WhalePod. If you did, make sure to smack those like and subscribe buttons. With the biggest, thickest unga bunga hit you can muster. And do feel free to leave comments in the comment section down below. All three of those help me out considerably, and I appreciate each and every one of them. And now, with that out of the way, WhalePod, I hope y'all are having fantastic days. Make sure to stay cool, stay classy, and most importantly, stay healthy. But until next time, this is Captain Whale, signing off.